Q fairy tale stuff, eh?
No, I don't. Well, there's actually, for me, there's two parts to the Q situation. First, there's the data scraping aspect, the connection tree, Jade Helm 2, and then there is the organic live action role-playing game that's started around it. And as that has progressed, the script and the storyline has now turned into something like what you were just reading here prior to me coming on. So I think you have reached the nexus point that you were looking for.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, as I read this aloud, I mean, it was all I could do not to break out laughing. Now, if Princess Di emerges mid-2021 and starts walking around with Dodi Al-Fayed, you can call me cynical. But I'm having a hard time buying this. Now, what about the two options I gave? Am I being too severe in defining the boundaries of what's going on? Am I overlooking stuff like people who have nothing better to do, living on unemployment insurance or something, just recreating on the internet by throwing gasoline on this narrative? Or do you think it's as simple as I put it? We're either being satanically gaslit before we horribly die, or this is real. Where do you come in on that, Jimmy?
I come in on it's not real, man. That's where I come in. I mean, just the bottom line, I would just cut to the chase right now, but I mean, I can explain why. I mean, just simply because, I mean, it's an interesting and beautiful storyline for people to be seduced into believing and getting caught up in the ether. You know, when you sell a car, you know, when you're a car salesman, that new car smell, that's ether. Okay, and when you're in a closed space with ether, you get ethered. And so the idea that somebody's going to come around and, you know, this whole thing's going to happen is an ether. And so, and it's not to say that what actually transpired through the Q phenomenon is all bad. I'm not saying that either. And I'm not saying you're bad if you believe in it. Everybody's welcome to their own opinion. What I am saying, though, is have you ever played a game back in grade school where you sit there and make up a story and one kid makes up a part and then the next kid makes up a part and then the next kid makes up a part and then the whole thing actually becomes a story, and then when everybody starts repeating the story long enough, the story then becomes legend and then becomes a meme. Memes are like viruses in the sense that they can be passed down from generation to generation. They're not just funny pictures on the internet. And so these memes develop inside of these agreement realities. And to everybody that's involved in it, it is real. They're playing a game every day on the internet. They're scouring the earth. They're trying to figure out what Q meant. And in the meantime, they're learning a whole bunch of stuff. So a whole bunch of people learned a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. Yeah. And so
that's totally true what you say. I mean, you could take a class of kindergartners, line them up shoulder to shoulder, and you could have 24 of them in a line all facing the blackboard or whatever kind of room they're in kindergarten. I don't remember anymore. And you could say to the first kid, purple flowers. And we used to call it a whisper chain, what you just gave, with the example you just gave. And by the time it goes through the ears of those 24 kids, it comes out the other end as stale gummy bears. Like not even remotely connected to what went in, right? Like purple flowers, stale gummy bears. And this is the way information travels through the public mind, and stories get told, right? They get all twisted and all of this sort of stuff. However, let me baseline this a little bit more, Jimmy. We know that Trump has brought things to light which are ugly truths about the world we live in. He did bust Novixium. He did bust Jeff Epstein. He did bust Ghislaine Maxwell. He is talking about these things. He did directly talk about missing children from Haiti, directly to Hillary Clinton's face at the Archbishop's dinner in New York. So, is he gaslighting us, man? is he in on this, or is he trying to do something that you don't think realistically can be done, or do you left it kind of ambiguously when you just said no, it's not true? And I realized I'm trying to paint you into a corner and admit that it's satanic gaslighting.
I don't. You know what? I don't have a problem getting paint on my shoes, dog, and I'll walk right outside over your fresh paint job, no problem. But hey, listen. Here's the thing. Look, if I arrest a bandit at 7-Eleven for robbing the store, have I put an end to armed robbery? No. Well, if I do that enough, do you think I'm the sheriff, in town, and crime's going to stop now?
No.
No. There's many aspects to this now. So one of my specialties is sussing out the behind the social engineering. So there's what's called seduction, manipulation, and archetypes. And so what you do is you create a seductive character based on an archetype whose characteristics easily manipulate a certain group or a certain type of personality. There's different types of personalities out there, and each personality is easily manipulated by a specific seductive character.
Yeah.
So there's a book called The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, and the book was written for, basically it's supposed to be for, people to go to bar people up, at will type of thing. But realistically, it's really not. It isn't an accurate description of exactly how social engineering works. So if I'm in an agreement reality, such as people want liberty, freedom, people want the bad people to be arrested, people who want law and order, all I have to do is create a seductive character that plays to all of those, create some good sound bites, one-liners, like maybe even tweets is a good example of something. And then what I do is just play to the trending mood of the population based on what's going on the internet. So there's trending. There's super intense trending methods of trending. So I could literally, as long as I got the person there that seduced you into believing, because that's the whole thing, is I want to make you believe. So it's because when I make you believe, I make you make that live. Be live. Be alive. I'm making a idea in the ether space come real with your intentional focus on what I'm showing you.
This is high magic, man. This is creating egregors and then manifesting them in the physical plane. And we all know they do this. Every look at the deep science since World War II, both in the Soviet Union and in the Western Bloc, reveals all of this. They cracked the human mind like a walnut in the 50s. And then everybody stopped talking about it, like MK Ultra went away. We had court case. Do you know that a court case even just last year? Because we broke all this open in Canada, right? They filed a action suit, the survivors and the children of survivors of Dr. Ewan McGregor, which was the first phase of the MK Ultra program, which actually took place, Jimmy, we know this, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, at the McGill University Hospital. And this was they just settled this like 3 years ago in Canada. Everybody was given $100,000. It was a lump sum payment, $100,000 for what their parents, their mothers and fathers were put through in the 50s. Some of these people came out of these psychic driving programs. They were incontinent, Jimmy. They wet themselves and defecated their pants. They could not control the most basic of biological functions. That's how much is done to them in these MK Ultra programs, scrambled their brains. And only last year, 2019, a new lawsuit was launched by the survivors in Canada, but this one not directed at the Canadian parties who were complicit. This one directed at the Attorney General of the United States. That's actually in the court system in Canada now. And they want us to believe that this just went away? That this study of the mind under duress and mind control and breaking the minds, it just went away in the 50s and 60s? The Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra was the end of it? No. What happened, folks, is it went underground. These people, they understand us better than we understand themselves. Collectively with the knowledge pool that they're working off of deep psychology. And psychology is conscious and unconscious, folks. I mean, they're operating at the level of a 300 IQ, and we're operating in the normal range of 120, 125, right? Very difficult to compete with these people. One moment. But what we have here now is a situation where discernment must be brought. You really... I'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who was apathetic to what was going on in the United States and the Trump narrative now. Nobody is apathetic. I mean, the liberal media and let's just call it the intelligentsia, which is the group of intellectuals. And I'm sorry to say that most of them still exist on the left, folks, even if they're somewhat misguided at this point in history. But you still do get much better writing and researching in the New York Times and the New Yorker and the Atlantic Monthly than you do in conservative Christian weekly publications, right? They're so biased, it's unbelievable. I do think that my liberal brethren have gone a little bit crazy in their contempt of Trump, and but they've taken a serious look at this Q phenomenon, and they've completely ridiculed it in the mainstream media of the intelligentsia, the publications I listed. So they did address it. They were not apathetic to it. They were for the first couple of years. Then they said, hey, we better speak to this. And then the next phase of it was, I believe Twitter just last week announced that no tweets about QAnon will be allowed anymore. That this has become something dangerous and, and something that is not good for public health and the public mind. But nonetheless, nobody that I know of is apathetic to this. Now, this leaves me with one overriding question, Jimmy. And I'm not asking for an answer. I'm only asking for a conversation. What the hell is going on? Why, as a normal Hegelian dialectic to gain the White House, and usually they're operating in concert, the Democrats and Republicans. I mean, they fight pretty real sometimes. Like when they went after Clinton in the 90s, that was real. They wanted his head on a platter, right? And so they can play real close to the bone at times. But this seems to be their magnum opus in terms of absurdity. If this is just... like, after this one, it can't be done again, is what I'm saying. So there's my third option. We're either being satanically gaslit or the Q narrative is substantively true. I gave that very rigid limitation on what the two options were before, okay? Here's a third. It's something in the middle, but it's so outrageous in the way it's used the normal political techniques of gaining power that both sides, the left and the right, are so cynical about it now that it can never be done again. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, for me, the idea of the political system that's put forward on what we see is not what's going on at all, and it's just all that is those are the players in the soap opera, who are going up there saying whatever they're saying. Like I said, they're seductive characters. They're the senator you hate, or the president that you love, or the whatever it is, man. And, these are all emotional buttons that get pushed. So you got three. You're putting three scenarios out there. So my first idea is the Q scenario in and of itself is a giant data scraping operation. It's taken a bunch of really smart, active people that want to make changes off the marketplace while they spin their wheels going round and round on the internet. Yeah, they're learning all the conspiracy theories and the memes and their, this and that, but bottom line, nothing's really getting done. Bankruptcy of the United States of America, I mean, $7 trillion, moving into a reset worldwide and a harmonization and a moving back to a combination of Bitcoin type blockchain money, backed by a piece of gold and silver there somewhere, and the BRICS, the China, Russia, India, and Brazil banking system that was set up before all this virus stuff happened for the last 10 years. It's all been moving in, getting ready. Everybody's moving forward towards this one world order. So in reference to your idea about is this it? Well, I think it is it, because now they've thrown in everything now. So now we have reached this point. When you look on the landscape, Bruce, you can clearly see that we already have unrest in the streets. We already have social abrasion going on. There's there's stuff going on. There's racism being stoked that wasn't there before, but now is. You have this people in the streets already, and then you have the economy based on this money that's been being given to people. Everybody's been getting some money to keep them quiet because the bankruptcy happened and everybody got paid off, and they were doling out some money for everybody to keep us quiet in our houses with our masks on. Okay?
Yeah.
So the money's about to run out. Okay? So when the money runs out, a bunch more people are going to end up in the streets in more ways than one. They're going to be in the streets because they got nowhere to live, and they're going to be in the streets because they got no money or they got no food. And they're going to jump in and start throwing gasoline on this fire that's already going. How are you going to do? What's the difference between who burns down a building and for what reason? The building still gets burned down, right? And that's what's going on with America right now. It doesn't matter if Trump is in there or somebody else is in there. It doesn't matter who lights the match or who pours the gasoline on the fire. The building is still burning down, and nobody can do anything to stop it.
You're completely wrong on that one. It actually does matter who's lighting it and for what reason.
That's John Z, by the way, and who patiently waited for me to introduce him, bastard. And how are you this morning, John?
I'm okay. I missed the caller's name. What's
That's
who are we talking? Jimmy Jean.
Friday nights.
What's
and
up,
Monday,
Jim?
I believe.
How are you, Jim?
Hey, what's up, John?
Okay. Fascinating conversation.
Can I go before you, John?
Go ahead.
Just before the top of the break, I have this crazy theory. I'm going to lay it out on you folks, and we can flush it out after the break. What if at the base of this money system, every time there's a reset, people have to die? Because the way the game is played, every unit of currency represents a resource that would sustain a life. And so to keep it real, blood has to be spilled every time it's reset. What if the fundamental debate between Hillary and her side and Trump and his side is which Americans get killed in this purge? I know, I can hardly believe I just said that out loud, but I did, so let's deal with it.
Well, again, I mean, we're all partly right because there's too many pieces in this jigsaw, and they all have valid spots. So yeah, that's part of it. Part of it is also, let's just call it the ongoing magician work that has been started since, I don't know, 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. And there is obviously a karmic debt here. In order to cycle out, it's going to be violent for many different reasons, not just because of people in power trying to keep what they have, not just because we're getting a karmic backblast of what what we reaped. There's a whole bunch of different reasons why it's going to happen. I'll just stop there. I'll wait for the top of the hour.
Yeah, okay. Did you, John, happen to hear that thing I read about Lady Di maybe being alive?
Who?
Princess Diana.
She may be alive. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yes, they say that she's part of this big JFK Jr. thing. They've brought Princess Di into it now as well. So, the story just gets weirder and weirder. And as Jimmy so accurately points out, these are heavy emotional buttons to press, eh? JFK Jr. was loved. Princess Diana was loved. These were people in the public light who seemed human like us. I mean, JFK Jr. failed the New York State bar exam like 4 times. That's pretty human, right? And Lady Di, she was just like one of us who ended up in the British royal family and expressed what was really going on in there, and that she had been brought in just to breed. I said that to my mom in the August she died in 97. I remember it well because my son was just born a couple months before that. And I was talking to my mother on the phone. I was living in Toronto. She was in Ottawa. I said, man, okay, it's a car accident by the paparazzi, and that's kind of sad in and of itself. But I said the saddest thing about this is how she was brought into that royal family, just like a mare, like a horse, just to breed.
And the Antichrist was plucked out of her body at a precise astronomical and astrological moment in a cesarean birth.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Can we dig into that after the break?
We could. But
more than a little. We'll just call these woo-woo Fridays, where we just go into the deep, speculative, imaginative landscape of people who live in their parents' basement.
You need the Twilight Zone music.
Imagine, if you will, a princess who never died. Imagine, if you will, an uncrowned prince of American royalty who never died. Imagine a real estate magnate, tight with the Chabad Lubvitz in New York, coming to run the country. So, if I were to say off the top of my head what's going on here, because I think that I should answer the difficult questions I ask myself, right? Otherwise, I'm just kind of a bastard on air. If I look at everything that's going on in the world right now, I'd say that they're collapsing the 3 towers of power now, which is the Vatican, London City, and Washington, and it's going to recongeal as one power center in Jerusalem. And that all lines up. That explains what Chabad is doing there in the White House in the form of Jared Kushner. And folks, these are the most whack job Jews there are, okay? The stuff they believe is just nutty. The mission. Oh, here we go. We'll be right back, folks.
So we're going on a break. So I can't play music unless I kill. Let me see if I can dump this. Hang on, I'm gonna tell these guys I'll be right back. I'm gonna dump this real quick. Remove from call. Hey. Hey, I removed him from the call. I'm over here on YouTube's live, so I removed Rev Radio by accident. I meant to remove myself. We just have to call. Yeah, we just have to call him back. Hang on, let me turn you up, Bruce.
Oh, we got a couple minutes, anyways.
Yeah. I was gonna play some Craig Kachiko. Hold on a second.
You do it. Bring it in right after the break.
You want me to
video head as we come back in, but
touch base on the They're running it off the AI. Yeah. So if you just remind me, because I just wanted to make sure we got into that, because we're drifting off the subject now, and I just didn't want to. I want to make sure we come back to it just so people get an idea about it. Okay, cool.
And I want to bring in how the biblical narrative and the Book of Revelation is also a highly emotional story. What?
Are we on there?
No.
Not on.
Hey, listen. The other thing is too that whole thing about
So a highly emotional story. What?
There's MK and Naomi, and now there's basically, they're running it off the AI. Yeah. So if you just remind me, because I just wanted to make sure we got into that, because we're drifting off the subject now, and I just didn't want to. I want to make sure we come back to it just so people get an idea about it. Okay, cool.
And I want to bring in how the biblical narrative and the Book of Revelation is also a highly emotional story. What?
Are we on there?
No.
Not on.
Hey, listen. The other thing is too that whole thing about the prince being plucked out. I mean, there's a whole. If you search that, you can find an article about it. He was literally pulled out. I think on the spring equinox. I think. Or
I'm not confirmed she was pregnant during that car crash.
I don't remember. I know Christopher Everard's done a whole bunch of work on this, on the death and all that. So I don't know. I've done a show on this. I actually did a movie mock-up.
Because if you think about it, you can have a baby premature by a couple months. Depending on where you are, but I don't think she was showing at all. So even if she was pregnant, it couldn't have been that far along. So
bring the studio back.
Yeah, you gotta go back. Hold on.
Doing it.
Hold on. I'm adding them. Stand by.
Oh, you're doing it.
Yeah, okay. Stand by. Here we go.
What are you gonna do? Bleed on me? I'm invincible! You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs!
Eastern time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur.
Chiquito, some bad woman. Hang on a second. Sorry about that, Bruce. Craig.
Morning alone. I have about 10 minutes of power if the main power doesn't come back on. That's what caused me to drop there, and I had to reconnect on my phone. Now, I got a little bit of a backup battery power in this transformer I bought, but it could go any time now, right? So, but in all likeliness, the power will come back. There's the caution.
So, to pick up where we left off, Jimmy had a little bit of an echo here.
I hear that too.
Jimmy had mentioned he thinks the Q thing is deception. And so take this for what you will. There's no way I can prove it, but I've met the guy before. And he, as far as I know, is putting out as much information as he can, as accurately as he can. And
Power's back.
Hooray.
Yay!
Yep. And so when I start looking at everything going on, Jim, you mentioned again that it doesn't matter who's in the house, who's burning down the house. In this case, it absolutely does. One of the reasons why everyone is getting money right now, and I've said this before, and I guess I'll make a point to say it again, the reason why everyone's getting so much money from unemployment right now is if they're smart enough to see what's actually going on, they're going to use that money to get to a better spot and start self-sufficient living. Because there's going to come a point where money, as we know it, is not going to be worth anything, and we're going to go back to trade and barter.
So reset in your definition, John, this is some biblical stuff. Like we're going back to moving the earth by hand and dropping seeds in.
Well, yes and no, but realize when an economy collapses, in any sense, money becomes almost worthless. And so if you have chaos going on in the cities and the streets in your local town, it's really hard to go up to someone like, hey, I'll give you $100 for those box of bullets. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just grades of cynicism, right? And I'm not saying cynicism in a negative way. I just honestly can't think of another word to fit in there. But if you go back to the last hour and the two options I gave, we're either in one of the most heroic narratives ever, or we're in the worst satanic gaslighting ever. It's a bit of both, actually. I think both sides are at play here. Good call, John. I think that's the truth of it. But really, when you look at what these evil folks were up to, I mean, there's evil and then there's evil, right? I mean, I want me and my family to have power and prestige for 1,000 years is a little bit evil. But the level of evil we're dealing with now in power circles is so much greater than that those are the good guys now. You know what I mean? The other guys, they want to eat your kids. And I have to say, this is the one thing about the Trump thing that I wonder about, right? Because you don't get a journalism degree and graduate anything but a cynic. It's the first thing they drill into your head in first year. What's the difference between an optimist and a cynic? Answer being, the cynic is better informed. So I find it even fanciful at 54 years of age that I can even muster up any sympathy at all for this QAnon narrative. But I think it got compromised also. I think there's two Q narratives now in terms of, I think maybe the real Q got taken out after the first year and a half or so or something. Anyways, yeah, I don't want to get into that.
Well, I'll get into
I don't want to get into it.
I will get into it.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Jimmy, go.
Yeah, no, because a couple of years ago, there was a bunch of young dudes did a bunch of work on this whole thing. They traced everything back to people. Those people, I mean, there's a whole thing that developed out of it, the Patriots soapbox, and you see all these players that jumped on the Q narrative. Every single person who jumped on the Q narrative, look at them, Jerome Corsi, all these Council for National Policy operators, all these people who operate just like the Council for Foreign Relations. Everybody knows about that. It's a big liberal think tank.
Yep.
Well, there's the Council for National Policy, which is the Republican think tank. It's exactly the same, with secret memberships and secret meetings and all this. So all these Q players jumped on this thing and perpetuated it far beyond its original. At first, I'm no disrespect intended to you as far as if you met Q or not, because at first there was something there, but it was after that original something was abandoned and taken over by operators and used for Jade Helm 3 data scraping operations of putting people inside of an agreement reality. Okay, and their agreement reality is being fed by a character who's reading a script on TV, who was an actor in a TV show.
I'll let you in on a secret. When this war started,
buy hemp seeds. Is that the secret? Buy hemp.
Yes.
No, buy weed.
Buy weed too.
We're going to be letting on 2 secrets today, folks. 2 secrets. Here comes the second one.
So, when this war started in 2001, we were very slow to pick up that those that control the narrative control the battle space.
Yes.
And it is no surprise if you look at what's going on versus what is being said in the media, especially nowadays. You'll see there's a very big disconnect from reality to narrative.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, Jimmy brought something up really important. I don't think he even realizes what he brought up, but I caught it right away. There was a name drop there, and the name was Jerome Corsi. And this was not Jimmy's intent, but I'm going to do a little spin-off here.
Well, I'll take that feud apart right after you're done, too.
There's a huge narrative that is long overdue in the alternative media, and that is to do with the degree to which it's been breached. And it's been breached by top-level operatives, okay? And you can't trust half these people. Like, I mean, what was that guy that Alex Jones used to have on for a while? You know, basically the psychological equivalent of Michael Aquino, where Aquino was occult warfare. Steve Pieczenik was psychological and psychiatric warfare.
Steve Pieczenik.
Yeah, Steve Pieczenik, you know, and there's all these sort of creepy deep state players pretending to have their moment of truth with this Trump movement, right? But honestly, folks, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Well,
And
Alex Jones had people from Palantir working at his operation, man. I mean, people, you know, that's the thing, is people are so blind to the secret right because they are on the right. And so the secret right is there, and it is definitely got players in the mix that set out talking points. Jerome Corsi, man, he jumped on that Q thing, and there was this one moment where some dude, there was a plane crash, and this Russian guy had gotten killed, according to Q. And it was all this thing about this Russian guy that got killed. And a friend of mine, Kev Baker, did like a 5-minute search and found this Russian guy that Jerome Corsi said was tied to Q and got killed. Found the guy drinking coffee at a place and sitting there enjoying his coffee the same day he was supposedly killed. Jerome Corsi went around spreading that noise all over the place without any research, without anything. He just took it and ran with it, which should show you right off the bat. This guy, look, man, if you got somebody who's a broadcaster and they're taking and they're running with the Q narrative, then you need to question who that broadcaster is, because staying in the middle on this subject is probably the best way to go. It's not to say that things don't take on a life of their own. LARPs get real, man. How do you think these crisis actors get caught up in live action role-playing games? They get caught up, all of a sudden it goes live. They're standing there thinking they were getting paid $10 an hour, and next thing you know, you got some doped up freak who's arrested for shooting 30 people.
Yeah. Okay, I want to do my... Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, you know, something to take note of, and this does not excuse anything, just kind of a reality of the field we're playing on, is that, you know, if you want to affect any change with any sort of urgency, the only way to do that is from the inside. And to do that, you may get out bits of the truth, but eventually you're going to get a warning, and your tune's going to change. And that's just the way this stuff works.
Well, I mean, I see.
I totally agree.
You see a direct turnaround, I mean, on a lot of things. Now, I'll just bring this up, okay? I don't have the documents. Okay, I'm just going to bring this up. When that whole email drop thing happened with the DNC and all that, there was emails dropped by Assange that insinuated that there were 4 candidates that were in the race for the Republican nomination that were put in there by the Democratic Party. And Trump was one of those 4. Okay? So, the thing about it is, listen, whatever team is on the field, man, is the ideology that's put forward. The process of the system moving to where it's going goes on. They just market it in a different way. And so if there's something that they don't want, your guy can get up there and talk it all he wants. But if he doesn't have what it takes in the rest of the system, he's not going to But if the ideology that's put forward, the process of the system moving to where it's going goes on. They just market it in a different way. And so if there's something that they don't want, your guy can get up there and talk it all he wants. But if he doesn't have what it takes in the rest of the system, he's not going to get that. But it doesn't matter because he'll be able to blame it on the other team. But realistically, it was the overall goal to not let that happen. It's not because the other team didn't want it. It's because the whole overall plan doesn't want it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Just real quick. You know.
All right. So
again. Bruce.
I don't hear you. I think you're breaking up. I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't hear him either. Anyway, while we're waiting for him to figure that out.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, let me remind everybody, hey, Revolution Radio is fully listener supported. Freedomslips.com, revolution.radio, Patreon at the top, Zazzle store in the middle, and down at the bottom you can send snail mail. Do anything you can to help us keep it going, because if you're listening to us now, it means that somebody else made a donation last month, and we'll keep it going this way. John, did you have anything you wanted to...
Am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
Yeah.
Oh, am I back? Am I here? Am I here?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. I don't think he can hear us. He was here.
Bruce.
Yeah, it looks like he left again. He left again. So
anyway.
oh, here he is. He's back. He's back. Yeah. Hey, I just want to. Hey, Bruce, let me just plug Let me plug something real quick. I'm going to be on with Kev Baker and Scotty Lopez later today on Freaky Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And I just wanted to put a shout out to the boys and let everybody know here that I'm going to be over there. So, Bruce, are you there?
yeah,
Excellent.
I am here. Can you hear me? I got a poor connection sign, but can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, so listen. This is one of the things that I think about when I think about what's going on in American and, by association, world politics now, because we still live in a time where Washington politics is the politics of a great part of the world, especially Canada. You know, I was raised to pay closer attention to what was happening in Washington than what was happening in Ottawa. So great was the effect of American policy on a Canadian's life. That said, I want to tell everybody about an absolutely phenomenal book that literally every human being should have read if you want to call yourself at least partway in the game of understanding what's going on this world. This isn't a conspiracy-based book. It's actually the book that formed the foundation for the social science we call anthropology. And it's a book called The Golden Bough by Sir Robert Fraser. And it details in great length and breadth ancient societies that were feudal. They had kings or they had aristocracy, and the pre-monetary societies and the rituals and the cultures that grew up around those societies. Now, in the olden times, and I realize that isn't a particularly erudite phrase, olden times, but you know what I mean. You could be king, but nobody really wanted to be king, and I'll tell you why. Because at the end of it, if anything went wrong under your stewardship, it was off with your head, man. Kings were the first people killed back in the day, right? And that's why kings were respected, because they put their whole lives on the line. So if a crop failed, people would superstitiously associate it with the king. And he would get one other chance, and if it happened twice, especially 2 times in a row, you're dead. And if you've ever seen a movie, and the original BBC movie, not the remake with Nicolas Cage, a fantastic movie called The Wicker Man, you'll see an example of one of those pre-modern rituals where the king is sacrificed, okay? And in this game, and believe me when I tell you that these higher-ups these people in power, they understand what I'm talking about today. They or their ancestors probably funded Robert Fraser to get this book written, The Golden Bough. Okay? Now, when you look at economies, okay, we are building upon a collective consciousness that has gone through generations of mishap, failure, famine, and trauma and terror. Because that's what village life was. Everybody imagines it to be some pastoral paradise with butterflies and lambs who miraculously lay down and willingly give up lamb chops when it's time to eat, all the while providing lovely wool for you in the meantime. Nothing could be further from the truth. Village life.
There's no unicorns?
There may be, but that's a separate conversation. But what happened is that human beings have been through everything. The laws of economy are really the laws of astrology. So it's about time, sequence, harvest, productivity, and all of these sorts of things. And if you didn't get them right, people died. You want to see an incredible tale about the real human condition and why conflict comes about. Get yourself or download a copy of the original Seven Samurai, Akira Kurosawa film made in the 50s. And this is the movie that America stole to make The Magnificent Seven with Charles Bronson, Steve McQueen, Yul Brynner, and a whole bunch of other people. But the original movie, The Seven Samurai, is a work of artistic genius. It's about rice farmers living peacefully in a Japanese village. And every year they are accosted at the same time by a roving group of bandits that allow them to live so long as half of their harvest is given to the bandits, because the bandits will starve. If they don't get the food, they won't be able to survive the winter. The question becomes, well, why do you persist in the life of banditry if you have to behave this way? But such is the life path of the negative personage, right? It just is what it is. So this one time, they don't have enough food to give to the dudes. And so before the guys, these marauders get to the town, they go out and they contract with a samurai, a ronin, a samurai without a master. They tell him their story. They say, this is an honorable fight. We are honest people. He goes and gets 6 more samurai. And they defend the village against vast hordes of people, like hundreds, and all 5 of the 7 samurai end up dying. And it's a classic tale about honor, combat, survival, and the true laws of nature. What is my point in telling you all these things? Robert Fraser, The Golden Bough, The 7 Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. It's going to give you a better understanding of what economics is. And it's my belief that at the deepest layers of this game, you can't have a reset without blood, because those are the ancient rules. And I believe there's merit to this wacky theory I floated in the first hour, that the difference between Trump and Clinton is who dies. Is it the blue-collar, stock, hard-working American, or is it all these leftist intellectuals who can't do anything? Which of these two groups of people is going to form the basis of the sacrifice because of this economic failure? And remember, economic failure is always to be measured and regarded as something like famine. Don't convince yourself in, oh, it's just money, they make it up, and this and that. Like the perversion of the liberal mind about how economics really works and the reality of life and death in a functioning economy, it mystifies me how out to lunch some of these people are. And I'm talking about people like Noam Chomsky. I'm talking about people like Bernie Sanders. They're morons, okay? And the one thing I like about the right is they understand spade turns the earth, seed goes into the earth, all goes well, crop comes out, everybody eats. If you don't understand that principal truth of economics, shut up, get on the benches, get out of the argument. There are too many people in public discourse now who are so dislocated from the fundamental realities of what a human life is and what sustains it, that they should be dismissed completely out of hand. And I think, to close before I yield, that part of this shift up between Trump and Clinton is about which group of 50 million Americans is going to be sacrificed. Over.
Well, I think we need to pull the veil off of some of that, because I think, for realistically speaking, this is not and has never been right versus left, black versus white. What this is about is this is a class war. This is a class warfare. This is to get the American people harmonized so that everybody's at the same subsistence level. We can't. The harmonization is part of the format for the future. There can't be one guy up here and one guy down here. There has to be a bunch of guys right here in the middle. Everybody's got to be the same. Everybody's got to have a level playing field is what they're shooting for. Not to say that there's going to be any more rights or anything like that. I'm saying they want everybody to be with their hand out. Because listen, let me just say something, Matt. Look, we don't even have much time for me to even say, but look, with all these small businesses closing, most of what the businesses that are closing, they're retail outlets where you just go there and buy stuff. Okay, when the money stops and the economy stops and people stop consuming extra goods, so many goods, they have to stuff them in a storage unit outside of their own house. I mean, we can only buy so much plastic, man. And now nobody's got a job to buy the plastic. No plastic, no money in the economy. Now, who's going to a restaurant? You going to go to a restaurant, have some dude making your sandwich in the back room when you can't see him, hanging over your sandwich, talking to his buddy? Are you going to restaurants? I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not right now. So
we've accepted that for so long. What's
well, yeah, I mean, the golden bough, the story you just told about the 50%. Before slaves were freed, slave owners let their slaves go to the Industrial Revolution and make money. Only thing was they had to send back 50% of what they made and had to live off the other 50%. Have we changed? Has anything changed? No, except the only thing that's changed is the slave owner. That's it. The only thing that's changed is the slave owner, and I'm sick and tired of being a slave to a government that I don't support. The government is, I mean, listen, let's bottom line it. Look, if you're printing up trillions of dollars, who cares who you give it to, man? Give it to the people. Have you ever read Cahill Gibran, The Prophet?
Yes.
Okay, so the piece that I'm reminded of is I asked you, I knocked on your door, I begged you for alms. You would not give them to me. Now he sits by the road with a club and he will take it by force, and that's where we are.
Yeah. Well said, Jimmy. We'll be right back, folks. See you on the other side. You boys are turning this Friday show into something special. This is more than I could do.
I'm having a good time, man. These are good discussions.
Oh, it's a blast, man.
Yeah, man.
It's a blast. And what you do is you create antipodal positions and just stretch the elastic. It's brilliant narrative drama for the listener.
Hey, say hi to everybody over on YouTube.
Hey, hi everybody on YouTube. Bruce,
so you guys will be able to find the show Bruce and John over on my YouTube channel after the show. Is John gone?
I believe he had to leave. Yeah,
Oh.
He signed off.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of physical therapy. Eh? He had a hip operation. That dude's been shot 5 times, man.
I know. I like that guy a lot. I have a lot of respect for him. I didn't want to have to. I mean, I wasn't trying to say anything against him, So.
He's like he's fair game for debate, but like he's like a soldier. Yeah, I mean he's been over here twice. I've seen him with his shirt off. There's like stab wounds, puncture wounds, bullet holes. That dude's the real deal. I mean, I'm not joking. He's been in Afghanistan, Iraq, everywhere. Now he lives in Staten Island, probably the worst war zone he's ever been in.
Hey, we got 2 minutes left. I'm gonna play a little bit of this song right here, and I'm gonna go grab me some coffee real quick. So everybody on YouTube, everybody on YouTube, I'm just going to play this song, grab some coffee.
Yeah, bring it back in.
All right, here we go.
and I am only one to where I live. A few paths, but only one road. And I like that. It makes it an easily defensible position when you've got pork, beef, and chicken and the world is starving. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Bruce McDonald, and I am joined by Jimmy Jean and John Z, and this is McDonald in the Morning for Friday, July 24th. We're rocking this morning slot. It's either a book or a very good conversation, and I'm loving doing it, and it's going to stay this way for time immemorial until the world falls apart. I will be doing McDonald in the Morning. So a week or two more. Stay tuned. And we're having a really good conversation and bouncing the old debate ping pong ball back and forth about what the hell is going on in this world with this Q narrative and this Trump presidency and all the lunacy, and what I read in the first 30 minutes about how, get this now, folks, Princess Diana may be a part of this, according... Now, I just peeled this off Facebook, okay? I haven't seen this on any official Q postings, but I just thought, man, I got to talk about this because this is the unicorn part of the narrative that John Z is always asking for.
Real quick, to answer your previous question about which group of people are going to get the stick, again, I think it's both. I think because of those who are in power, they're setting the groundwork, basically lighting the fire, and if you just take a look at Portland, you'll see what I mean. And along with that, again, we don't know what's going on in the background. And personally, I think this is why most of the countries are pretty much quarantined or isolated, no travel, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I brought this up, but really quick, remember, if everyone's at home, you can't just be snatching kids and all this going on. So. Yeah. Now,
John, for those of us who don't watch the news, myself included, either you or Jimmy can answer this, because I haven't been watching the news. I made a deliberate decision. I don't keep up on stuff anymore, man, which is why I read books on McDonald in the Morning or talk about books, because I had to turtle on the daily news cycle. I was going crazy. Well, and I just said enough is enough. I don't want to know anymore, which leads me to my next question, which either you or Jimmy can answer. What is going on in Portland? What have I missed?
So now this is as 2 or 3 days ago. So basically what's going on over there is, and this is going on in multiple cities, Chicago, Portland, and a couple other. But anyway, long story short, the police are pretty much nowhere to be found. The only thing they've been doing is breaking up large groups of people. But at night, it becomes a free-for-all. And so you've heard that they've started targeting federal buildings. And okay, so basically, the quote-unquote peaceful protesters have been targeting these buildings, federal buildings, and so their response was to send in federal agents. And so you can see it. I'll send you a video. There, you could see it. The entire any federal building in the surrounding area is completely covered in graffiti. And so what they wound up doing is I'm talking about the federal police here. They wound up basically barricading themselves in. They put up plywood and all the windows and doors and that type of stuff. And the video shows the quote-unquote peaceful protesters basically tearing down the plywood, granted it's just plywood, breaking the glass to the doors and shining high-powered lasers as well as bricks and fireworks into it. And you can see at the end of the video that a couple of the agents basically flanked them and started, let's say, roughing them up a little bit, as they should be, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay. All right. So is there any... the only thing I did catch briefly on the news was Chicago and how Mayor Lightfoot is losing control of it.
Hey, I'm curious.
Real quick. 15 people died 2 days ago in one night.
Okay.
Including a 3-year-old girl. Got shot in the head.
Jimmy?
Okay, well, let me just remind me to get back to Chicago, but I wanted to ask a question, a social question. I want to know what made the battle in Seattle against the World Trade Organization people heroes. What differentiates them between the dirty hippie socialist commies that are in Oregon right now? I'm just curious because, I mean, is it the enemy? In other words, is it the rag doll that I put up there and shake around that makes the difference between people standing up for something they don't like, which is the government, which is the exact same thing that a lot of the people in the Patriot movement, they don't like about a lot of the things about the government too? And why isn't there any kind of why isn't there people getting together on similarities to defeat the enemy, and then getting down to the differences later? Well, I mean, I'm just curious.
Well, I don't have an answer, but I do have to take a moment and say that is an excellent question and one that has gone through my mind in the last 6 weeks as well. I had that exact same epiphanal moment as you, except substitute Seattle, in which the first big G20 protest took place. Substitute that about 15 years ago with the June 2010 one in Toronto, and I was thinking, Bruce, you were completely in support of that protest against the G20, and a lot of these people in Portland and Chicago and the other cities who, if you think you're aligned with Trump, they suddenly become your enemy, and then you snap out of that trance and you go, well wait a minute. Don't we want an end to big government and all these things? Like, how come these two groups can't get together? And I think the best step toward that was what Mechanic brought forth on his roundtable a couple Sunday nights ago, where he gave the Amon Bundy speech at the Black Lives Matter protest. And I thought that was brilliant because we do need a reduction in federal police, and we don't need all this ATF and DEA. I mean, they're not doing anything anyways except protecting the CIA's money line.
See, the other thing, too, I want to point out about what's going on in the class warfare that's going on is the last yelp of the middle class is going on right now. And all people, a lot of people that people that have lived in a more of a poverty type situation where they don't have enough, regardless of what color they are, they've been there for a while, man. They've been sitting there working the system. They got their own little situation there where they've been living, and they're kings in their world. Now all of a sudden you got all these weird middle class people that are falling off the grid into the system, and they're coming in and they're moving people out and they're taking over neighborhoods and they're trying to push out this class of people that's already been there. Okay, and so it's the fight that's going on right now is the fight between the lower class and the middle class for some sort of superiority in the one underclass. There's going to be the working class and there's going to be the thinkers, and that's how that's going to work in the future. And so it's going to be just like the movie Metropolis. If you go back, you watch the silent film Metropolis, if you look at it, I swear, I'm not kidding, the whole plan is right there in silent film. Everything's there. And I want to get back to this AI psychological programming, this MK Ultra when we can. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll just add briefly that brilliant Fritz Lang movie. If you haven't seen Metropolis by Fritz Lang, folks, why are you even listening to McDonald in the morning? But yeah, there's a couple like primo recommendations for you today. read The Golden Bough by Sir Robert Fraser and watch The Seven Samurai, black and white movie by Akira Kurosawa, and watch Metropolis by Fritz Lang. These are highly educational, and all of them are considered classics in their field. Go ahead, John Z, and then we're going to get to AI and MK Ultra.
Oh, that should be interesting. Jimmy, agree what you're saying about the class warfare, but there's a funny irony in this. If you take a look at what happened in the autonomous zone, right? You had all these people saying they did not need quote-unquote police or ambulance or whatever the case may be. And I'm pretty sure everyone's seen it at this point, or at least heard it. There's actual video of this happening where the quote-unquote security in Chaz basically executed a person, and they had the wrong people. And so I'm not saying that we don't need change here, but people need to realize what they're actually asking for.
Right, because it's important from a social engineering standpoint for you to see that. Because I need to put that in your mind so that if you get any ideas about any autonomy, these are the ideas you're going to get. It's just like when I say anarchy, you think of some dude with a skateboard with a black ski mask on. But see, that's the whole thing, is like anarchy is really what everybody wants. But see, the thing is that they don't understand that that's what they want, because they think the definition of anarchy is a dude on a skateboard and a black ski mask, spray painting the side of a building.
Agreed.
So the thing is, look, I'm a big proponent of technology because there's no way you're going to stop it. You can sit here and market the beast all day long you want. It doesn't matter. It's going forward. So the thing is like, if it's going to go forward, then let's let it go forward. And if I have a blockchain ID that's unhackable because of quantum computing, then why can't I do my own voting? Why do I need a senator? Why do I got to send them up there? Why do I got to send a congressman up there? I used to have to ride a horse and send my man up there to tell him what I wanted.
Well, that's a whole conversation by itself.
It is.
One of the reasons why this is all fell apart is because, in part because of technology. But remember, in the early days of this country, your senator, your representative, whoever they were, their local town, they helped that senator's family while they were away with their business, with their farm, with their crop. There's a huge disconnect now that it's not even funny.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to put forward. It's not a matter of left or right. It's a matter of moving into the future, an evolution rather than a revolution. In other words, we need to move into a higher plane of thinking. We're not even on the subject in this information age where I have the ability to literally beam a signal into your skull and make you think about buying an eclair at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
There is not one conversation going on in any political arena anywhere about cognitive liberty. There's nothing going on. The conversation.
Perfect segue into MK Ultra.
Right. So, before they used to have these little programs, they used to have people, and they used to put them in programs, and all that stuff was a test. So if I take everything I've learned, let's just extrapolate it. Okay, I take everything I've learned from all those programs, and now I start teaching a machine how to do something. So let's just make it simple so you can extrapolate this. If I have a machine and I teach it everything I need to teach it, and I say, when you get this equation, you make this red light blink and this buzzer go off. Every single human being on this planet at this point is a red light and a buzzer. And every single thing you've ever done on the internet has been scraped. The AI knows you better than you know yourself. The AI knows exactly what news stories to put in your news feed to make you go one way or the other. Go ahead.
It's not really true AI at this point. It's more of we'll call it a dumb AI.
Yeah, it's more
smart AI would actually be
if this then that. We got if this then that right now, but there is a general intelligence AI, and there's super intelligence AI, and these are programs that run by themselves and learn on their own. And
they're not programs.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Let's not get to that finite level of debate. You know, my solution for everything going on in the world now is the original contract given to man, and that's 40 acres and a mule, man.
Yes.
Get yourself some land.
Yes.
Do your own thing. I got to say this. I don't like to say this on air because it irks people a lot, but as the first world goes down, I move to what is ostensibly the third world. Everything is rising here now because everybody here exists in a commodities-based industry like Abaca and stuff like that. The price is going through the roof for textiles, right? And so if you're at that baseline of the economy that no generation could ever do without for the last 10,000 years on this planet, somebody has to grow food, right? Somebody has to live on land. It's a safe way to live right now, and it eradicates all disturbances. And, in 10 years, I may rejoin society when everything gets fixed after this reset. I may have a condo in Toronto and my farm in Costa Rica. Well, and my wife will be there in the summer and fall, and in the winters we'll be in Costa Rica. What I've done here isn't about abandoning the world. It's just, it's like being on a small sailboat, a couple kilometers out from shore, seeing storm clouds and say, well, I'm going into shore for a while. That looks pretty nasty. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, what John brought up about the autonomous, people being autonomous with the money that Uncle Trump gave them, I mean, I think that is one of the most cogent sentences I've heard since all of this stuff's been happening. Because I think people, if you got money from Trump and you got a little few bucks laying around in the bank, man, think of all the things you could do with it. I mean, literally, I pointed out the other day, there's a site called Billy Land. You can go on there with almost nothing and buy yourself some acres. Okay, you got a couple grand, you can go out there and build yourself a house for almost nothing out of pallets. I mean, I mean, anything you want to do is possible. That's the thing. That's the thing is you got to turn it around 180 degrees on these people. Yeah, man, guess what? I'm stuck in the house, blah, blah, blah. Well, all of a sudden, I'm homeschooling my kid. All of a sudden, I don't want to send my kid back to school. All of a sudden, I'm cooking.
One of the horrible things that have happened in recent years, among many, is specifically the schools at a young age, and even further to college, even to a more degree, have stopped people from critical thinking. There's no creativity anymore.
It's the liberal arts education that's been taken out of the education system because it says liberal on it. And anybody that has a conservative idea thinks that liberal arts means something to do with liberals. It doesn't. It has to do with the trivium. It has to do with rounding your children with music and art and all the things. There's an equal and opposite. I mean, they used to have the Presidential Physical Fitness Award back in the day. You know what
Jimmy,
I mean?
you got time in the last 7 minutes or so to just lay on people what the trivium is, because it's a brilliant paradigm, and anybody who knows about it, their life could be immeasurably benefited if they simply understand the trivium.
Yeah, it's grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and you use this to find the truth and use your discernment. And it's nothing that I can go into in 7 minutes, but I think I've been bringing it up for the last couple of months. Anytime that I ever have the idea or getting the opportunity to talk about education, the first thing I say is the trivium, because it's the first. If you live in a family that has money,
what is it?
It's grammar, rhetoric, and logic. And the use of grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and being able to discern information and form arguments.
Yes.
So it's a way to take information apart. And so I was about to say that if you come from a family with money, you go to a school, you go to a prep school, man, you're exposed to all of the stuff in the liberal arts education, and you're also exposed to the trivium. And that's the difference. If you have a guy who understands the trivium and a guy who doesn't, the guy who understands the trivium will walk all over the other guy. So in a debate, in ways of understanding what the different arguments are and the different ways people attack you, and it's quite an extensive subject matter. And there's beyond the trivium is the quadrivium, which also includes math and other things. So everybody's got their homeschool going on. You can teach your children anything you want now, and you can cook your own dinners, and if you want, you can grow some of your own food in your backyard, and that's a good way to start. And anything that you learn in this opportunity that we have in this period, there's always that. I almost got in this car accident. I was jamming to do a service call up to San Francisco, and this car bashed into the center divider, and then it bounced. Acting, I would expect that show. There's a Pence character who's president, the 46th the 46th president. He dies in there, and that means that the character of Trump isn't in the question in the picture. So it appears from that TV show that Pence was president for some reason. So there may be some interesting turns in the storyline of the Trump presidency sometime between now and the election. And I think the turnaround on the masks, I'll be the first to take the vaccines. I think there's a big turnaround happening right now, and I really, honestly, I wish and hope that the Q narrative was a real story, and that Trump was going to be the guy, But what I fear is that there's some sort of, anything could happen. I mean, if I'm writing a script, if I'm down in Hollywood and they say, "Hey, Jimmy, I need an ending to this script. What do you think?" I mean, anything could happen, man. He could resign. Yeah. He could resign. I'm sick of this. Forget it, man. I did everything I could for you. I did everything I could, and all you did was hammer me for 4 years. You know what, man? See you later. I'm not a crook.
Let me just say that this is Revolution Radio Studio A. We're entirely listener-supported. That means we need your support to keep doing what we do. If you like what you hear, and I hope you do, because we're partially here to entertain as well as inform, then please go to revolution.radio and hit the Patreon button. Set us up with a regular monthly donation, $5, $10, $15, $20, or just do a one-off, or sign up for the archives, one or the other, or go to the Dazzle store, or Razzle, what is it called again? Razzle store? Yeah. Get some gear there. You can get a T-shirt, all kinds of stuff. Now, Jimmy, you're going to be doing some big-time broadcasting this afternoon. Why don't you plug that again? Because I'm definitely going to be tuning in. And I don't think we can say that there are rival stations in Internet radio. We'll call this a sister station, Truth Frequency Radio. Go ahead, buddy.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just, I used to be on Freaky Friday just about every Friday. And it's been a couple years on there. And I'm coming back today with Kev Baker and Scotty Lopez, and we're going to see what we can get into, man. It's always a great time. It's always a good time. We're going to have some laughs and get into some of these, odd situations.
Callers?
I'm not sure he can open the line, so hopefully he will. I'm not sure if he's going to, but
listening.
Yeah, I'll mention it. And, of course, he'll be live.
If a guy named Dieter calls in and the area code says South Carolina, that's me.
Sweet. All right. Well, no. So it'll be a good time.
What time is this show?
Yeah, it's at 4 Pacific today.
So that's 7.
Yeah, 7 Eastern. Yeah, 7 Eastern. It's always a good time, and they get into the woo over there. So it's always good, go over there and talk about some of these odd happenings and maybe the reasons for some of it. And it's always a good time, man. So I'm looking forward. Yeah, maybe. It is, exactly, yes. Unicorns could be a subject matter. I know we have talked about unicorns before, so you never know. Everything's a metaphor in life, isn't it, though? I mean, a metaphor is a metaphor is a metaphor. And all I can say is I wish everybody that they walk with peace today and try to have as best of a reaction that we can with everybody. And
that's McDonald in the Morning. We'll see you next Monday. It's weekend time for me. I want to thank Jimmy and John for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. We'll see you next time. Stay tuned. Great program to follow.
That's all there is. I got to cruise. So thanks everybody for being here. Thanks Asher. Thanks Dawn. Thanks Lee. Thanks Zoe. And everybody else. I can't see. My glasses are not the right glasses to read so far. But I had a good time. That was a great show. It was good fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we put some thought-provoking material on the table. And hope you had a good time. And I'll see you on Freaky Friday tonight. My name's Jimmy. It's into the microcosm. And that was McDonald in the Morning. Bruce McDonald, author. You can find him on Amazon.
This is what it feels like now.
And all of this sort of stuff. However, let me baseline this a little bit more, Jimmy. We know that Trump has brought things to light which are ugly truths about the world we live in. He did bust Novixium. He did bust Jeff Epstein. He did bust Ghislaine Maxwell. He is talking about these things. He did directly talk about missing children from Haiti, directly to Hillary Clinton's face at the Archbishop's dinner in New York. So, is he gaslighting us, man? Is he in on this? Or is he trying to do something that you don't think realistically can be done? Or do you left it kind of ambiguously when you just said, no, it's not true. And I realized I'm trying to paint you into a corner and admit that it's satanic gaslighting.
You know what? I don't have a problem getting paint on my shoes, dog. And I'll walk right outside over your fresh paint job. No problem. But, hey, listen, here's the thing. Look, if I arrest a bandit at 7-Eleven for robbing the store, have I put an end to armed robbery? Mm-hmm. No? Well, if I do that enough, do you think I'm the sheriff, in town, and crime's going to stop now?
No.
No. No. There's many aspects to this. Now, so one of my specialties is sussing out the psychology behind the social engineering. So, there's what's called seduction, manipulation, and archetypes. And so what you do is you create a seductive character based on an archetype whose characteristics easily manipulate a certain group or certain type of personality. There's different types of personalities out there, and each personality is easily manipulated by a specific seductive character.
Yeah.
So there's a book called The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. And the book was written for, basically it's supposed to be for, people to go to bars and pick people up, at will type of thing. But realistically, it's really not. It is an accurate description of exactly how social engineering works. So if I'm in an agreement reality, such as people that want liberty, freedom, people want the bad people to be arrested, people who want law and order, all I have to do is create a seductive character that plays to all of those, create some good sound bites, one-liners, like maybe even tweets. Is a good example of something. And then what I do is I just play to the trending mood of the population based on what's going on the internet. So there's trending. I mean, there's super intense trending methods of figuring out what's trending. So I could literally, as long as I got the person there that seduced you into believing. Because that's the whole thing, is I want to make you believe. So it's because when I make you believe, I make you make that live. Be live. Be alive. I'm making a idea in the ether space come real with your intentional focus on what I'm showing you.
This is high magic, man. This is creating egregors and then manifesting them in the physical plane. And we all know they do this. A cursory look at the deep science since World War II, both in the Soviet Union and in the Western Bloc, reveals all of this. I mean, they cracked the human mind like a walnut in the 50s. And then everybody stopped talking about it, like MK Ultra went away. You know, we had court case. Do you know that a court case, even just last year, because we broke all this open in Canada, right? They filed a class action suit, the survivors and the children of survivors of Dr. Ewan McGregor, which was the first phase of the MK Ultra program, which actually took place, Jimmy, you probably know this, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, at the McGill University Hospital. And this was they just settled this like 3 years ago in Canada. Everybody was given $100,000. It was a lump sum payment. $100,000 for what their parents, their mothers and fathers were put through in the 50s. I mean, some of these people came out of these psychic driving programs. They were incontinent, Jimmy. They wet themselves and defecated their pants. They could not control the most basic of biological functions. That's how much what was done to to them in these MK Ultra programs scrambled their brains. And only last year, 2019, a new lawsuit was launched by the survivors in Canada, but this one not directed at the Canadian parties who were complicit. This one directed at the Attorney General of the United States. That's actually in the court system in Canada now. And they want us to believe that this just went away? That this study of the mind under duress and mind control and breaking the minds, it just went away in the 50s and 60s. The Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra was the end of it? No. What happened, folks, is it went underground. These people, they understand us better than we understand themselves. You know, collectively with the knowledge pool that they're working off of deep psychology. And psychology is conscious and unconscious.